Welcome back to Subliminal Signals. I'm Carlton, and we're 10 episodes in. Can you believe it? 10 episodes into this journey of identifying and resetting the thought patterns that keep us stuck in cycles we don't even recognize. The response to episode 8 is what I want to key in on in today's episode. That one was all about the age excuse. And it's been incredible. I've seen so many people in my age range, in the 40s and 50s and beyond, that have reached out sharing their own stories of feeling like certain opportunities had passed them by. But you also shared something else, a deeper desire to move beyond it. And so I think one of the things that deserves another episode or kind of a revisit of this idea is a fear that also came up in a few of the conversations around it. It's not just the fear of being too old, it's the fear of being outdated, of having missed the boat on any number of things, whether it's technological changes, cultural shifts, or industry evolutions. It's the voice that whispers when you see younger colleagues effortlessly navigating tools that confuse you, or when you hear about trends that feel completely foreign. Today's signal is the world has moved on without me. And if you just felt some familiar anxiety about being left behind in a world that seems to change faster every day, this episode is going to help you reclaim your relevance and recognize the unique value that only comes with experience. So, let me paint a picture you might recognize. You're in a meeting and someone mentions a platform or a strategy or even some type of cultural reference that everyone else seems to know, but you've never heard of it. Or you're trying to learn a new technology and you're feeling frustrated that it doesn't come as naturally as it used to. Um, I will tell you, this one lands for me because I'm in software development. I have been writing code for a very long time across a variety of different languages, platforms, and technologies. And I can tell you that sometimes I run across things and I'm like, man, this used to come so fast. The paradigms are just different. Um, So this one definitely lands for me. And that's the whole point of this episode. You could also be looking at job postings that list requirements that didn't even exist when you started your career. And you think, what should I do in this moment? And then there's that voice that can sometimes kick in, saying that the world has moved on without me. I'm becoming irrelevant. I can't keep up anymore. But here's what I want you to understand. This feeling, it isn't actually about your competence or your value. It's about the unprecedented pace of change we're all trying to navigate. For the first time in human history, the rate of technological, cultural change is happening faster than a single generation can adapt. But here's what that voice gets wrong. Relevance isn't about knowing every trend or mastering every tool. Relevance is about bringing value that matters and the value that comes with experience. Wisdom, perspective, judgment, emotional intelligence, none of that ever becomes obsolete. It actually becomes more precious in our current environment. You see, one of the biggest lies our culture has told us is that being a digital native is somehow a superpower, and that it's a superpower that older generations just can't match. And that be, and you know somehow because a person grew up with smartphones, they have some insurmountable advantage in the modern world. But here's what I've observed in my own work and my life. Knowing how to use technology is not the same as knowing how to use it wisely and efficiently. Being able to navigate every platform doesn't mean you understand how to communicate effectively. Being comfortable with digital tools doesn't mean you know how to solve complex problems. That 25-year-old might be faster at learning new software, But the 50-year-old understands the strategic implications of implementing that software. The younger employee might be more comfortable with social media, but the experienced professional knows how to build relationships that actually matter. Speed of adoption is not the same as depth of understanding. And in a world moving at digital speed, wisdom becomes even more valuable, not less. So let me share something that might surprise you. In many ways, your experience with pre digital systems actually makes you more valuable in our digital world, not less. And I say that to myself as well. I've learned that, the kind of analog life that we had early on is way more valuable now than I ever thought it would be. So you remember how things worked before they were automated. Like we all remember that. Well, I can't say we all, but everybody who's in my age range and older remembers how the world worked before things were as automated as they are now. We understood and understand the underlying principles that the software is built on. You can troubleshoot problems because you've seen the patterns before. You know which innovations are actually just old ideas in new packages. Because a lot of what we see right now is just that, old ideas in new packages. More importantly, we've developed what I call change resilience. We've lived through multiple technological revolutions. We lived through the personal computer, the internet, mobile phones, social media. We've learned to adapt before, which means we can adapt again. The 22-year-old starting their first job has never had to learn a completely new way of working. We've done it multiple times. And that's not an advantage, that's the superpower. So, as we're talking about adapting to change, one thing that becomes even more important as we get older is quality rest. Your brain literally processes and consolidates new learning during sleep. And if you're trying to stay current in a rapidly changing world, sleep isn't optional, it's essential. That's why this episode of Subliminal Signals is sponsored by Sleep Remastered, the guide to transformative rest. This isn't just about getting more sleep, it's about getting better sleep that actually restores and revitalizes you. Sleep Remastered includes 7 targeted audio sessions ranging from 7 to 30 minutes in length, each one designed specifically for busy professionals like us who need maximum restoration in minimum time. You'll learn rapid sleep onset techniques, how to recover from those 3 a.m. wake ups, and how to optimize power naps for cognitive performance. The program also includes a 30-day implementation guide that helps you transform ordinary rest into extraordinary restoration. Because when you sleep better, you learn better, you adapt better, and perform better, regardless of your age. Sleep Remastered is available exclusively inside the Story Shift Circle, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. You'll also get access to the full library of transformative tools, monthly live sessions, and a community of growth minded professionals who understand that your best chapter might still be ahead of you. Visit coachingkaleidoscope.com/school, that's SKOOL, to join us. Because staying relevant isn't just about learning new things, it's about having the mental clarity and energy to apply what you learn effectively. All right, let's get back to reclaiming our relevance in a changing world. So, there are 4 common ways this world has moved on signal shows up. See if you recognize yourself in any of these. So, let's talk about technology. Technology trap. You feel overwhelmed by new tools and platforms, so you avoid them entirely, which actually does make you less relevant. But the solution isn't avoiding technology, it's focusing on the tools that actually matter for the goal. The next one is the culture trap. This is where you feel disconnected from current trends, slang, or cultural references. So you assume you can't connect with younger colleagues or clients. But authenticity trumps trying to be cool every time. Then there's the speed trap. You feel like you're learning new things more slowly than you used to, so you stop trying to learn. But depth of learning is more valuable than speed of learning, especially in leadership roles. And then there's the industry trap. You see yourself or you see your industry as changing rapidly and assume that your experience is slowly becoming or quickly becoming worthless. But every industry revolution needs people who understand both the old way and the new way. Each of these traps is based on a false assumption about what relevance actually means. So, this is your reset for this week. Instead of saying, the world has moved on without me, try this. My experience gives me unique value in this changing world. One more time. Instead of saying the world has moved on without me, try this. My experience gives me unique value in this changing world. But this reset requires you to identify what that unique value actually is. So here's your relevance reframe exercise. Number 1, identify your bridge skills. What do you understand about how things used to work that helps you navigate how they work now? What patterns do you recognize that others miss? Step 2, catalog your wisdom assets. What hard won lessons do you have that can't be Googled? What judgment calls can you make that come only from experience? Next, recognize your adaptation history. What major changes have you successfully navigated in your career or in your life? How do these experiences make you better at handling current changes? Lastly, define your learning strategy. You don't need to learn everything, just the things that matter for your goals. What 2 to 3 new skills or tools would have the biggest impact on your effectiveness? Step number 5, find your teaching opportunities. How can you share your experience with others who are navigating these changes? Teaching others often helps you stay current yourself. You see, the goal isn't to become indistinguishable from a 25-year-old. The goal is to leverage your unique combination of experience and adaptability. And here's something that's liberating: you don't have to learn everything. At your stage of life, at my stage of life, um, I've got wisdom. I have the wisdom to be selective about what deserves my attention and what doesn't. And so do you. The 25-year-old feels pressure to master every new platform, follow every trend, learn every tool. You have the luxury of asking, does this actually matter for what I'm trying to accomplish? This selective approach isn't a limitation, it's an advantage. While others are scattered across a dozen different tools and trends, you can go deep on the ones that actually move the needle. You don't need to know every social media platform, just the ones where your audience actually is. You don't need to master every new technology, just the ones that solve real problems for you. You don't need to follow every trend, you only need to follow the ones that align with your values and goals. See, this focused approach often leads to better results than the scattered learning that younger professionals often engage in. And here's a strategy that's particularly powerful for staying relevant while leveraging your experience. Become both a student and a teacher simultaneously. Find someone younger who can teach you about new tools, platforms, or approaches. In exchange, share your wisdom about strategy, judgment, and navigating challenges. This keeps a mutual learning relationship. that keeps you current while providing immense value to the other person. I've seen 50-year-old executives learn TikTok from 25-year-old interns while teaching them about business strategy. You can see it online right now. You can see some of the folks in your timeline, inside your algorithm, folks that are our age and older that are sharing skills that are relevant for them at the stage that they are. And then you can see them also adopting the frameworks that they're learning from their younger counterparts. I've watched experienced professionals master new software by partnering with younger colleagues who need guidance on client relationships. Senior devs working with junior devs trying to figure out new tech has been a huge win for me. And this isn't about trying to be young again, it's about creating bridges between experience and innovation that benefits everyone involved. And as the pace of change accelerates, something interesting begins to happen. The value of experience actually increases, not decreases. Here's why. First is pattern recognition. You've seen enough cycles to recognize which changes are fundamental and which are just fads. I work in an industry that's constantly evolving and things are changing. But in all honesty, a lot of it is just fads. They're not changing the actual fundamental underlying pieces. What they're changing is that fluff that kind of sits on top. And this will help you, if you can recognize that, it will help you invest in your learning energy more wisely. Then there's implementation wisdom. You know the difference between what looks good in theory and what actually works in practice. This prevents costly mistakes that inexperience creates. I see this in where I work currently. I see it in the industry in which I have operated for a variety of years across my uh, career. And I've seen this across industries. We love things that look good. That shiny object is huge. However, that shiny object is not always what's going to work. And you should always go and find that experienced person who can tell you how things actually operate. And by doing that, you'll prevent costly mistakes that comes from inexperience. Then the relationship capital. You have networks and relationships that took you decades to build. These connections often matter more than technical skills, especially for those that are in the older age range, or I should say older age range. I'm talking about myself, right? People who are in my age, it's now your network is even more critical than it's ever been. Strategic perspective, you can see the bigger picture in ways that people focused on immediate trends cannot. This long term view is increasingly valuable in our short term world. We've also got crisis experience. We've navigated downturns, industry shifts, and unexpected challenges. Not just like the housing crisis of 2000 and, was it 2008, right? But like I don't know, some of you may have been around for the dot com bubble. Like I lived through that. Like I lived on the West Coast in Silicon Valley during the dot com bubble, where you had companies that had huge buildings, threw parties, they had billboards and all kinds of stuff. And then a few months later, it was empty. It was a ghost town. I remember walking past buildings in San Fran that went from hopping to like a ghost town. But we all survived. And this resilience is incredibly valuable when change creates, because change comes, right? And with that change comes uncertainty, but we know that we've already weathered it. So the compound value of experience doesn't diminish because of technological change. It becomes more precious because it's rarer. So this week, I want you to practice what I call relevant learning, strategic skill acquisition that honors both your experience and your goal. Instead of trying to learn everything, pick one or two skills or tools that would genuinely improve your effectiveness. Go deep instead of broad. For those of you who use generative AI or ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other tools, right? This is your opportunity to build that skill. Go and find one thing that you can ask of ChatGPT to help you build a learning plan on one or two skills. Go broad instead of deep. Don't learn something just to keep up. Learn it to solve a specific problem or achieve a specific goal. Purpose driven learning sticks better and provides more value. Not to harp on the generative AI thing, but the company that I work for is very focused on implementing Gen AI solutions. But a lot of the training is very general. But what I was able to figure out and what I was able to help people with at a conference that I was at was saying, okay, find a specific workflow that annoys you and see how you can apply generative AI to it. For me, it was like some of the scaffolding that goes into my software development work. I was able to figure out how to use some of those tools to handle that scaffolding part that I just hate doing. So figure out how you can learn with purpose. Then connect the new to the known. When you're learning something new, actively connect it to what you already know. How is this similar to systems you've used before? What principles remain the same? And then teach while you learn. Share what you're learning with others. Teaching forces you to understand concepts more deeply and helps you remember them better. So here's a good story around this one. So I'm in a school community for people that are working on generative AI, like digital products, right? So I was sharing how I utilized one of the app building tools called Lovable. And wrote this super long, like, explanation of what I had built. Like I started with, okay, here's what I built. And then I explained like how I got there, all the different tools that I used to build this thing that I had created. And I really only did it because I wanted to see if I could. And I remember getting into a conversation in the chat, or not the chat, in the comments around it, because they were like, this is way more detailed than what we're doing here in this group. And I'm like, I get that. But the only way that I understand it is for me to kind of teach it. So ask me questions like, what about what I've written here is like too detailed? Like, help me break it down for you. And then we spend a lot of time like just breaking down the concepts of how I got from my idea to the skeleton of the web page, and then the frameworks that are underneath in the web app and the finished product. And so I learned a ton just by being able to teach what I was learning. So teach while you learn. And then focus on principles, not just procedures. Instead of just learning the steps, understand the underlying principles. This makes it easier to adapt when the tools inevitably change again. Because here's what I want you to understand: relevance isn't about being current with every trend, relevance is about bringing value that matters. And the things that matter most, again, wisdom, judgment, perspective, emotional intelligence, relationship skills, none of that is ever going to become obsolete. Yes, you need to stay somewhat current with the tools and the trends in your field, but you don't need to be on the bleeding edge of everything. You need to be deeply valuable in the areas that matter. The executive who understands both traditional business principles and modern digital tools is way more valuable than the one who knows one or the other. The consultant, like me, who can bridge generational perspectives is more valuable than the one who only speaks to one age group. Your relevance doesn't come from being young, it comes from being wise. And wisdom only increases with age, if you let it. So, if you're ready to stop feeling left behind and start leveraging your experience as an advantage, I invite you to join me and the other members inside the Story Shift Circle. This month, we are going to be diving into some techniques on building confidence in our rapidly changing world. And you'll get access to some targeted hypnosis sessions. You're going to get some exercises to follow, some journaling prompts, and most of all, a community of peers who understand that relevance isn't about age, it's about value. Now, remember, we are coming up on the end of August, right? I'm looking at my calendar here for a second to make sure that I'm in the right place. So, we're working on our founding members. So, founding members, $47 per month. I hope that you're able to join while we're still building that founding core of the community. But no matter what, this is a place where you can feel connected and you can grow with like minded individuals. So go on over to coachingkaleidoscope.com/school. Again, that's SKOOL to secure your spot. And until next time, remember, the world hasn't moved on without you. The world needs you to bring to it the wisdom that only comes from experience, the perspective that only comes from living through change, the judgment that only comes from making mistakes and learning from them. You're not behind. You're certainly not obsolete. You are definitely not irrelevant. You're a bridge between what was valuable in the past and what will be valuable in the future. And that's one of the most important roles that anyone can play. So thanks for being here. And thanks for being willing to adapt and grow while honoring the value of your experience. Thanks for showing younger generations that learning doesn't stop at any age. And I'll see you next week with another subliminal signal that's probably keeping you smaller than you're meant to be. Until then, keep resetting and remember, your experience isn't making you irrelevant, it's making you invaluable.